Makespace is a user-led collective which Courtney, Bathsheba and I founded just over a year ago along with our friend Catherine. Makespace is grounded in our shared principles. We believe in the value of community and peer support, in foregrounding people's lived experiences of self-harm in all the ways that those can be complex and contradictory and different and nuanced. We trust people who self-harm's capacity to know themselves and to make their own choices. We believe in the need to show solidarity in the ways we think and act around self-harm, recognising that people's experiences are significantly impacted by structures of marginalisation along lines of race, gender, class and sexuality. And so we also recognise the need for broad systems-level change in the support that is available for people who experience self-harm. And finally, we believe that responses to self-harm are often grounded in a discomfort with difficulty. And we try to instead find ways of being with difficulty without rushing to resolve it. Since we got started, we've been busy. What we do most often is run workshops exploring how people might respond to people who self-harm with care and compassion, recognising that people often don't feel very confident responding to self-harm and so might do so in ways that are unintentionally not very helpful. Sometimes we work with particular groups, such as medical students or social prescribers, and tailor our workshops specifically to them. We've also just finished running a series of events around LGBTQ+ self-harm, which particularly explored themes of care, community, and creativity. This included a panel discussion, a peer support session, and a storytelling workshop. So in all our work, we have to think carefully about what it means to talk about self-harm and how we might do that as safely as possible, for both us and for all the people we work with. And so safeguarding is vital to everything we do.
Before I started Makespace, I suppose I thought safeguarding was maybe just a formality or wasn't particularly interesting. But actually, when you start to unpack it, we realise that questions of safeguarding are really at the heart of almost all user-led work. And that is, as groups organising for a different kind of mental health system, we are creating new ways of supporting people while simultaneously challenging current or dominant ideas around what safety or what risk actually is or means. And the starting point for safeguarding is to acknowledge that, whether we agree with them or not, we have legal responsibilities. And there are other elements of safeguarding to do with organisational accountability, like having DBS checks or doing risk assessments. And some of these obligations are perhaps more about keeping ourselves as an organisation safe as opposed to the safety of our participants. And while we believe that these technical or legal aspects of safeguarding can help organisations to identify some risks, they fall short in encouraging or advising us on how to respond to risk in a way that is meaningful. We believe that by only looking at our legal responsibilities and doing so uncritically, we can sometimes cause rather than prevent harm. And another thing to think about when it comes to safeguarding is risk. And as user-led groups, we are often pushing back against systems that shut down or avoid situations because they are deemed too risky. And at Makespace, we invite people with experience of self-harm to share deeply about their experiences of self-harm or other experiences in their lives. And we do not require people to tell us about their past or present self-harm. We don't try advocate or invite people to stop self-harm or even minimise it. And for some organisations, this would feel too risky. But we don't think that risk is necessarily bad or dangerous. We think that shutting down risk is actually bad or dangerous. Instead, so we believe that inviting risk, we must take it seriously and take tangible and material steps to ensure the physical, psychological, emotional and spiritual safety of people in our spaces. And by thinking of more than just physical safety and more than just our legal responsibilities, we find ourselves going above and beyond formalities and thinking creatively and courageously about what it means to actually take care of each other.
We don't think that our responsibility is just to follow the letter of safeguarding regulations, but to really consider what it means to be safe and what we can do to ensure that people who come to our workshops and events feel welcome and trust us to know that we've got their backs. It's about how do we enable people to bring things that might feel risky into these spaces and to feel secure and supported in doing so. And there are several different things that we find really valuable in shaping these kinds of spaces. The first is decompression. So events often have hard edges, especially online. So people leave spaces by closing a door or clicking a button, and then they're just gone and it's over. And that can feel really abrupt, especially if they've shared quite important experiences or stories or emotions in that space. So we tried to shape all of the spaces that we facilitate. At the beginning of events, we'll have some kind of grounding exercise, whether that's a few minutes of guided breathing or something as simple as a 1 or 2 word weather report to check in about how we're all feeling. And then at the end of our events, we stay online for half an hour for an optional debrief, which is for people to ask any questions or bring up anything that wasn't voiced in the event itself. And we find this a lot less jarring than having an immediate leaving point right at the end. Building on from decompression, we also offer one-to-one prepaid debrief sessions after every single event that we run with a counsellor or a therapist. And this is normally someone who was not at the event, so people have a space to talk through and process anything more serious that came up for them. It's also about knowing what is and isn't in our capacity to provide. So the 3 of us have expertise in different areas, but we're not trained therapists. So we bring on board people who are, and we make sure we have a comprehensive signposting document, one that we've thought really carefully and critically about. So we know where to signpost people to if they need additional support. Also, when shaping the spaces that we're facilitating, it's super helpful to be clear on what that space is and what it's for. So this helps to prepare participants by giving them a bit of a heads up on what they might want to bring into or take out of a space. And that kind of structure can be helpful to give a sense of stability. So we feel grounded in it and our participants know what to expect. And it gives that kind of scaffold in which we can be creative and we can have complex conversations because we've got that underneath it. So even when things feel tricky or complicated, there's some kind of structure so people can trust that we've got this. That said, it often happens that what we thought the space would be or what we thought people would need is not the same as what actually happens. So sometimes people need something different and we need to be adaptable to that. Having a clear structure helps us to maintain boundaries for doing this, plus a kind of safety net. And it gives us the security to be able to adapt within that and to give more space to particular moments or conversations if we need to. Something that really helps us to do that is having multiple channels of communication. So this benefits our participants who online can privately message us or they can email us during events if they've got questions or concerns, or having a breakout space and someone who they can go and talk to separately if we're doing something in person. This also makes events more accessible because people can write on Google Slides or Post-it notes or pieces of paper. If they don't want to share out loud, there's multiple ways for them to engage in an event. And it also benefits us as the people facilitating it. So we have our own WhatsApp chat open during online events so that we can check in, big each other up when we're doing things and ask about when to have a break, that kind of thing. It means we can work more effectively as a team. We can also have people who are designated as the chat monitor or the breakout space person or someone who's checking the emails so that we can be fully on top of all of the different forms of communication. We also have what we call a commitment to complexity that undergirds everything that we do. It can be quite a delicate balance because we want to keep people safe, but we also don't want to just view people as risks or their experiences as problems to be resolved. We need to recognise that people have different understandings of what is risky and different levels of comfort within this, whilst also being really clear on our own boundaries, both personally and organisationally, and communicating these to our participants. This is not a full or exhaustive list of everything that we do. I'm sure there are plenty of other things, especially when we start doing events in person again. But these are some of the cool things that we do to ensure that our spaces are not just safe for people, but also welcoming and inclusive. And there are also things that we find are not often mentioned, and we hope they're helpful for you.